Well, good evening, members of Liberty.me. It's nice to be here, and I mean that truly and sincerely, like I've never meant it before. We've done these Sunday nights together for, about a year. But I'm really happy to be here with you because just yesterday I was behind bars, so that's an awesome thing. So it's amazing to be here with you. And I decided in honor of the occasion to wear the same clothes that I wore when I was captured. So that this is what I was in when they pulled me over and asked for my papers and pulled me over for. I'm going to read the article to you just because I don't want to go through the whole story here. It's just ironic to me that tonight's book is Mises's Omnipotent Government from 1944, one of his most powerful books. It's the book I plan to cover tonight. It was written as, I would say, probably the most anti-fascist book ever written. It's not an attack on left socialism like the old socialism book was, and it wasn't about communism as much. Many of his works was an entire book. It was an attack on the brown shirts, on Germany in particular. And just authoritarianism in the total state in general. And it's a sweeping and beautiful book and has so many insights, and hardly anybody reads it, and takes it seriously for what it really means. So I was excited to talk about this. And then, yesterday, just driving along, I happened to be pulled over for a violation of a law I didn't even know existed, the so-called move over rule. And because of a bureaucratic foul-up and the interpretation of one cop, I immediately got myself cuffed and thrown into a car and then put into the slammer, an old-fashioned slammer with green steel bars and a big key locking me in there, like the threat to society that I am. And I had to cough up a lot of money to get out. I'm now out on bail, literally. You're talking to me. I'm out on bail, pending a hearing for my malfeasance and evil. So this happened to me. It can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. I think we're not entirely aware of how vulnerable, all of us truly are. We're just one step away. Maybe we are in a sense. I mean, I've never been around in times where people are more terrified of being stopped by the cops because it could be anything, and as soon as they have you in their sights, they're desperate to find something you did wrong. And I'll go through that with you. I want to read my article on the air, mainly because I've had a lot of requests to do so. I didn't want to make a separate video of that because, I'd have to do so many takes and, I get nervous. And somehow talking to my friends, at Liberty.me, I feel much more relaxed. So I thought I would just read it to you to start the evening. In the course of all this, if you would, on the Liberty.me interface there, just ask any questions you have. I'll try to leave plenty of time for questions, and then I'll try to answer them. I think my admin is going to be sweet enough to post them into the interface here, so I don't have to look back and forth. So anyway, so to start off, I'd like to. So here's the thing. Before I begin reading the article, you have no idea how grateful I am that I have Liberty.me as a platform. What would I have done? First of all, when I got out, I was actually too exhausted to write. I mean, writing is hard, contrary to what readers sometimes think. It's actually hard work, and it takes a lot out of you. You have to focus. You have to. If you're writing anything good and truthful, you have to actually pour your heart into it. You have to really mean what you're saying. You can't just do it on autopilot. I mean, I write fast, but it's every single article I write takes a lot of mental energy and a lot of emotional energy. And to tell you the truth, I just wasn't quite up for it yesterday after I got out. I'm not sure what happened. I think I just spent time just decompressing, but as soon as I possibly could, I decided to write it up. And to be able to publish without a gatekeeper, to be able to just post in a way that actually reaches a lot of people is an awesome thing on a beautiful platform that people can take seriously, that people can share. You're not embarrassed to share. What can you say about the value of something like that? I mean, it's awesome to me because it was like 2 years ago now when I first started imagining the existence of something like Liberty.me, because I felt like in the liberty world we need this. I mean, what is human liberty about? It's about an idea. It's about a single idea, and that idea is more powerful, we have to believe, than all the armies and all the guns in the world. If we have a platform to get our ideas out there in a way that can be shared among many, many people, and that's in a platform that's beautiful, that is credible, and can as a part of a community. Not like, I mean, social media like Twitter and Facebook, which are increasingly just like, I mean, yeah, they're useful, but they're almost unbearable in this, at some level too. Liberty.me is a community of friendship and support, and I knew that I had a community out there. And I can tell you, just sitting in jail, I thought so much about this beautiful world that we have. It makes all the difference to you to have friends from all over who care about you. Are interested in an update, that will be sympathetic with you, that will listen to you, that will help you come to your defense. I mean, that's a lovely thing. So it's ironic to me. Here we are, just a year and a half into the live site, and I get captured and caged, and suddenly, the thing that I imagined 2 years ago could exist is the most valuable thing in the world to me. So thank you for reading, and thank you for being here tonight. If you have a chance, I mean, you can see, Liberty.me is not just a business. It's not just a platform. It's not just another website. It's essential to all the things that we love and treasure in this world. It's a chance to connect with friends, and to have our voices really matter in the world. That, it's about, Liberty.me is about making a difference in our lifetimes, within our own lives and within our lifetimes. That's why it exists. There wasn't anything like it out there before, and there's not anything like it in existence. So it's, for $5 a month, I mean, what's your liberty worth? I mean, this is an awesome, immensely valuable service, just to have it there. It gives you access, gives you a voice. We can all be Tom Paine, that's extraordinary. So thank you for being a member. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting what I think is, just one of the great, important projects of humanity today, this website. And to me, the fact that I had access to it just underscores and proves it. Please accept my gratitude and thanks for helping make it a success. So if I may, I'm just going to read my piece. Probably gonna make some flubs, but just read it to you if you don't mind. And I'm doing this mainly because I've had requests, and it's fairly personal. Before I begin, let me just tell you something. It's my second time to be arrested. The first time was, I would say, 7 years ago, something like that. And I was so embarrassed about having been arrested and gone to jail that when I wrote my article, and it's called Society in Jail, that actually I republished on Liberty.me, I was so embarrassed about the fact that this happened to me that I didn't even use my name. I wrote it in the third person. I wrote it as if it were about somebody else. And I remember crafting that article and wanting to admit that I was the one, but pulling back from that because I thought it would be too disgraceful, that people would think less of me. Prisoners always feel this way. It's always embarrassing to talk about something like this because there's been, since the ancient world, a stigma attached to being in jail and being arrested. People just assume, well, I guess you screwed up, you had a failure at life, you did something wrong. If you hadn't done something wrong, why would they have taken you to jail? I mean, you're a loser in some way. And I had this overwhelming sense of that stigma 7 years ago when I first wrote that article, and only a few people figured out that there's no way I could have known all these details if it hadn't been personal. And I admitted it to a few people. The essay, I think, is reprinted in Bourbon for Breakfast. But it's funny, now 7 years later, the same thing happens to me. And I mean, to admit that this happened, I wasn't shy. It didn't even occur to me to recoil from the stigma. I was much more forthcoming about it. It's times have changed. And why? Because 7 years ago, it wasn't as bad as it is today, and now everybody's scared of the cops. Everybody's profoundly aware of what an unbelievable threat police are, and our public institutions that we created in order to protect us from crime, and instead they've become the source of the biggest threat in our lives. I mean, probably arguably more than private crime for most people. And but it's still true that the social stigma of being in jail is there. It's diminished to the point that it actually never even occurred to me to hide it. So in a sense, that represents a kind of a cultural, social change. It's certainly a change in my own outlook over the time. So I was happy just to tell you what happened, and all of its grim details. So here's my piece. I'm going to click away from my screen and just read to you. It was a lovely day otherwise, but for me, most of it was spent in jail, from one minute to the next. I went from seemingly free to cuffed and captured, and anyone who's ever experienced such a thing knows exactly what I mean. If you haven't experienced it, I hope you never do. It might be best described as a loss of innocence, plus a new presence of awareness that all we love and cherish in this world hangs in the balance, and this balance can be tipped, with or without reason, by a slight push by any law enforcement officer in this country. It's my second time to go to jail. The first time it was an unpaid ticket, so I wasn't entirely surprised to revisit that sense of a complete loss of volition and being wholly dependent on others who value you not at all. I've been there, and it rocked my world the first time. To have others drain you of everything we regard as human is a psychological challenge and an unforgettable trauma. The second time, it was easier to see on the other side. What these people want, I kept telling myself this, is to book me, chalk me up as a statistic to show how essential they are, and then pillage me for as much money as possible. Then it will end. And by day's end, it was over. Except not really. This one incident is over, but the reality that none of us really controls our lives, that none of our property is really our own, that we stand vulnerable to legal kidnapping at any moment. This is an ongoing reality for the whole population. To be arrested and jailed is to experience firsthand the terrifying realization that there's no real freedom, not under the existing system. When someone's arrested, people's first question is, why? There's an implicit anxiety to the query, how can I avoid this fate? Maybe if I don't do something stupid like he did, it won't happen to me. We want to assure ourselves that the problem of the police state is really someone else's problem. It's felt by, people who live on the edge and who do drugs, who are illegal aliens, who don't know how to speak politely to police, and so on. These are complete illusions. Well, here's how it happened to me. There's a new traffic law in most states called the move over rule. And when the police are stopped on the right hand of the side of the road, you're to move over to the left lane. And this makes the police feel safer. For my part, I had actually never heard of this law. I never really had it tested in my driving behavior. And the police had set up a trap, stopping there on the side just to test compliance. So as I approached this thing, I moved over, but not quite enough. So sure enough, the lights flashed behind me. Well, I pulled over and I gave the officer my license. Another car arrived. He turned to me and said, "Step out of the car," which I did. And he asked me why my license was suspended. Well, I was shocked, right? So blood drained from my face. And then I remembered I was late one day paying a parking ticket a couple of months ago. When I paid the ticket, the lady at the counter told me there might be an issue with my license. So just to make sure, she gave me an official paper labeled Official Notice of Reinstatement of Driver's License and put the official stamp, the official seal on it. And I remembered this. And in a sort of a panic, I told the police that he could actually find this document in my car, which thank goodness I had it in my car. I mean, I might have just brought it inside my house. So they looked, because at this point I was not allowed to move. I couldn't go get the document myself. So they rifled through my things and brought the paper back and stared at it. One policeman said, "It's clearly legitimate. Look, it's got the official seal. It's from the municipal court. It says his license has been reinstated. Look at the date." The other said, "No." I'm standing there while they're discussing this in my presence. "No, this is issued by a municipal court and not the Department of Motor Vehicles." So he couldn't accept it. I protested. Look, the document's right there. It says my license has been reinstated. I don't understand. This is from the government, and this is an official. And he stared at me, and he said, just in an instant, "Put your hands behind your back." So I was cuffed and led to the car, and he stuffed me in the back seat. And I protested that my computer, my phone, and all my stuff is in the car. None of this matters because they don't listen to you. They proceeded to search my car for drugs or guns and liquor or whatever. I don't know. They found an unlabeled bottle of pills. It's a small blood thinner I've been using since I was a young teen. It stops a hand trimmer. And they interrogated me about it, and they held it up to me and said, "Look, this doesn't have an official label," implying that having an unmarked bottle of pills is illegal. And I suddenly wondered, I mean, is it? I don't really know. I poured them in there. That's what I carry around. I don't know if it's illegal. But anyway, at this point, I could just tell the policeman, he sort of was, he took a slight liking to me. You know, I mean, dressed up, polite, I don't know. So he let me keep the pills, and he handed them to me. They would later take them away from me. Yeah, but when he handed me the pills, of course, I couldn't take them because my hands were cuffed. So he said to me, "Look, I'm going to do you a favor. You seem like a nice guy. You don't seem to be a real threat. I'm going to do something really nice for you." He undid the cuffs from my back where they were pinching me very tightly and hurting my wrists. Just, I don't know if you've ever sat in a cop car with handcuffs on, but you can't stop squirming because there's no way to make your hands comfortable. There's no way to sit comfortably. So he unlocked them and put hands in front of me and recuffed me and made the handcuffs much looser. So suddenly, yeah, I was still a prisoner. I was still, in handcuffs, but they weren't pinching me, and I was able to sit normally. And I was able to take the pills and put them in my pocket. My car would be towed to a record lot, he explained. And if I get out on bail, I could pay money to get the car back. Would the lot still be open by then? I asked, and the policeman had no answer, no concern. And this is generally what you come to realize. Once you're arrested, you're an absolute captured animal in whatever state you happen to be in. Whatever's on you is on you. Whatever you walked away from is no longer yours. Nothing else matters. You're no longer a consumer, a citizen, a person with a job, a normal human being. You're just fodder, a thing they can use as they see fit. The notion that you have any rights at all once you're arrested, it's a joke. You don't. Whatever happens to you is entirely the decision of your captors. As an aside, somebody asked me today, "Why did you let them search your car without a warrant?" Well, I didn't let them do anything. They do what they want to do. If they want to search your car, they're going to search your car. You can object, but the more you complain about what they're doing, the more they're going to, they have the right to do terrible things to you. You know, the cuffs could have been on my back, and tightened. They could have been tased. I mean, anything could have happened. So you have every incentive to be as polite and deferential as possible. Well, the police car with me in it took off, and within 15 minutes later, I was being strip searched, just crevice by crevice, with gloves on. Yeah, they dug deep into every pocket, looking for what? I had no idea. They're pulling out my pockets and feeling down to the threads. Then after that, they threw me behind the jail. You know, green bars, steel, small bench, a dirty toilet, some gross faucet thing. And there I sat for 45 minutes. I wasn't allowed to use the phone, of course. I mean, this is a great myth. But after a while, they finally let me use the phone for a few minutes. They let me out and got me on the phone. And I began to notice a softening of attitude on the part of the guards. They were speaking to me and lightening up on things a bit. And I actually briefly felt like I wasn't captive. It's an illusion, really. So they let me fuss around on the phone a bit. It was essential. The phone is an old technology. People today text and they message, and you can't do that from jail. I mean, there was absolutely no connection. I actually reached into my bag of belongings and took out my phone, which I wasn't even supposed to do. And they saw me do it, and they let me do it. I mean, they could have, you know, clubbed me at that point. I can't believe how many risks I actually took as I think back on it now. Just, you know, arrogance or something. But there was no connection, so I couldn't text. When you're in jail, you don't have a smartphone. You don't have anything. You can call, maybe, if you're lucky, but people these days are disinclined to answer the phone from some random number. We only have the phone. We only answer the phone when we know the person's calling. That meant I had to leave messages and hope to call back. It's a highly volatile situation. You have to find someone to pick up. And if you don't, you could be in jail a very long time. And actually, this is what would happen. You might get bail, and they would send you out on the streets, no car, and you're stranded. I can't even imagine the fate of someone without a credit card, spare cash, and so on, because that's what the bail bondsmen, who are private employees, after all, they're like miniature bankers. You have to have good credit, or they're not going to give you anything. I don't know what would happen to you. I guess you'd stay there for a month. I'm not sure. So now I want to tell you about the story about a Hispanic man that was brought in after me. And I saw how other people were treated. He was cuffed and back very tightly. They were much more rough on him during the search. I saw it. And then something remarkable happened. They found what looked like a small flakes of marijuana in his pocket. It was just tiny. It was like no more than a quarter of a teaspoon. They immediately changed his charge from failure to appear, and that's why they arrested him. There was a warrant out for a failure to appear. He missed a court date for a traffic violation. They changed it to a felony, and the felony was bringing illegal substances like narcotics, pot, into a correctional facility. And once this happened, the officer held the contraband up in a bag to everyone and shouted with glee, "We've got a felon. We've got a felon." And they all high-fived it, you know. And I'm standing there and I said, I'm sorry, what is that? And they said, well, it's marijuana. I mean, the amount was not bigger than this fingernail, like that much. And they considered him to be trafficking in narcotics inside a correctional facility. He was now a felon. Very different matter. He was an amazing man, actually. He didn't show a lot of emotion. He almost as if it was something that he expected. Or as he put it to me later, he said, jail is just for the unlucky. That's all it is. It's not for criminals. It's just for the unlucky. which made me very sad. He was in my cell, and he was a wonderful man, but he now had a broken life, and I suddenly became aware of how fortunate I was, or let's just use the word privileged. I'm white, just like the arresting officers. I wore a suit, well-spoken, calm. Yes, I was captured and pillaged, but I became aware that I had not experienced the worst of it, nothing like it. So I would leave at the end of the day. This man was not so lucky. He had tattoos and accent, generally seemed more dispensable controllers. He seemed poor. They found flakes of pot in his pocket, and he would be entangled in this mess for months, maybe even serving time, maybe even years. What is it, 10 years in prison? I don't have no clue. This sounded to me like a ruined life, all for pot flakes in a pocket. So in other words, this is why they were searching me so thoroughly. They wanted to find any excuse, any small reason to intensify the charges and spread more misery and wreckage. One of the guards seemed less excited than the others about the discovery of this evil felon, and I asked him how I could stand to watch this kind of thing happen all day, every day. And he told me you just get used to it. He's just doing his job. Just doing my job. I must have heard that phrase 15 times during my ordeal. The cops use it, the clerks use it, the guards use it. The whole system sees itself this way. It's just doing what it's supposed to do. It seems a bit like war. You know how soldiers do terrible things every day, morally objectionable things, but they come to terms with it because, hey, they had no choice. They just do what they have to do. And so it is for the whole criminal justice system in America today. Everyone's just doing what they have to do. No single person's responsible for judging the morality or justice of it all. It's a system, and they work within it, and they can't change it. They cooperate with it. They live by the book. It's the book itself that is the oppressor. We routinely refer to the justice system as a monopoly of the state, but it couldn't work without the private sector. If you think about it, the cop cars are made by private enterprise. The guns and clothing they wear are privately produced. The handcuffs and tasers, they're all products of capitalism. The jail, it's built by private contractors. The steel on the bars, too. The company that towed my car, private. The bondsman, private. The more you look at the system we call the state, the more it becomes clear that most all of it is built by the power and productivity of the market economy. Everyone who's part of that system, every contractor, every payee, has a stake in its well-being. They want the system to continue, and they're ready to defend it, because defending the state is the same thing as defending their livelihoods. So what makes the state different? What is this thing we call the state? In the end, it's about the law itself. That is to say, the law is the teeth. The law is what allows the state to do to us what we cannot do to each other. It possesses this extraordinary thing, a full monopoly on the use of aggressive force against person and property. The state then is the one agency in society, the one that's permitted the full power of unmitigated coercive control over everyone else. These are the thoughts I had while sitting there. Who makes this law? Some elite group somewhere. Could be a regulator, could be a politician, could be some administrative edict, a judge. It could be that everyone responsible for the law in its inception has long passed from this earth. In this case, the law stands as a living monument to dead ideas, dead people, a dead past, but it stands nonetheless. And it does so because of the intricate network of interest groups that benefit from it. This is a system of exploiters and the exploited, exactly as Marx himself had explained. But the difference is this. The law is the exploiter, and the population is exploited. It's not complex. But misidentifying the identities of who is who, a mistake that characterizes centuries of political thought, can have terrible consequences. The politics of our time are all about identifying the exploiters. Who are they? The socialists say the exploiters are the capitalists. Trump and his army of fools say the exploiters are the immigrants. The white racists say the problem is the blacks. The theocrats say it's the infidels and atheists. The neo-Nazis say it's the Jews. In the war between the sexes, it follows the same path. Oh, it's the men. Oh, it's the women. Generally, the right says the problem is the left, and the left says the problem is the right. And the masses of people follow these claims and push their agendas, which are always about building the law code higher, thicker, tougher, more and more horrible. And yet, every law ends in the right of a tiny elite to capture you, pillage you, and ultimately kill you. Every addition to the law code intensifies the violence. As an aside, if I had resisted even slightly, pulled my arm away when he tried to cuff me, I could have been tased. If after having been tased, I tried to run, I could have been shot. You look back at it, you can't move. It's an awesome feeling. After I was freed, and of course not really freed, I reclaimed my car, and I ended up at McDonald's. Where it was amazing. I walked in the door, and a lady comes up to me as if I were a visiting dignitary, even though they didn't know my name and they'd never seen me before. And she immediately offered me free fries and a drink. Hello, sir. How would you like free fries and a drink? So, to hear those words from her mouth, looking at her, and I was just thinking, do you know where I just was? You don't know. You don't know. You have no idea, but you're here to serve me. You're here to help me. You're here to care for me. You're celebrating my value, my existence. You want to feed me. You want to give me free stuff. You love me. I mean, it washed over me just like a warm bath. It was shocking. Shocking to encounter a scene from the market economy after having experienced this. So I hesitated and said, sure. And she said, well, come over here and let's order you the hamburger, exactly the hamburger that you want. And I got to choose, Should I add bacon? Should I add mayonnaise? Should I have this special sauce? Do I want fried tomatoes or fresh tomatoes? The irony was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. And I sat there waiting for my order to be delivered. And then it came, and she served it to me. And beautiful little baskets with a drink, and I got ketchup and sat there eating my fries and hamburger, being nourished, eating food that centuries of humanity has struggled to get, which now comes to me so quickly and so easily, for so little money, and with a smile, with love, with concern, with a sense of the person valuing who I am as a human being. Did I feel a connection to McDonald's at that moment? Yeah, I did. It's the source of life. There it was in living color, an astonishing contrast between the jail and just some fast food restaurant. The former is a hell. It's created by law. The latter, it's a product of us, who we are, the emergent social order, and it's civilized by exchange and commerce. And as I sat there, I realized this is the closest thing to heaven that this world offers. So that's my article. That was my experience. There's more to it. I have a court date coming up. I know how I'm going to do it at court. You're just going to pay the money. That's what you do. And that's what you need to get through the system is money. And it's remarkable to me as I think about it. The left's always complaining about how the capitalism discriminates for against people based on whether or not they have resources. I mean, yeah, true enough, true enough, true enough. I can't deny that. But you look at the system of the state, how much more true is it in that case? If you're poor, you're destroyed. If you're rich, you get out of it. Somebody like Donald Trump, look, that's not gonna happen to him. We all know this, You want a system that doesn't discriminate between rich and poor? You're not gonna find it. It doesn't exist in this world. If you want to get close, embrace the market economy. If you want to get as far away as possible, create a world ruled by increasingly thick, high, tough laws. That's where the exploitation occurs. That's where the discrimination occurs. That's where things get really wicked. I've been criticized for this article for drawing attention to privilege, but I mean, come on. I mean, let's get real. Criminal justice system, it destroys people who are poor, regardless of race. But yeah, there's a racial component because, I mean, the poor Hispanic man who came in, I was mortified. I was in the same cell with him. We've got the most popular Republican candidate running around making devils out of anybody who looks like an immigrant from the southern border, and actually as if they're the key problem in our country. They treated him like that, and he expected to be treated like that. I mean, he was not surprised. He was not shocked. He very quickly come to terms with it. And I, sitting next to him, talking to him about the system. And by the way, this happened to me last time I was in jail. I was with 7 or 8 guys last time. And all of them were innocent. I mean, they're all caught on just idiotic things. There's not a one of them was an actual threat to society. I was reflecting on this. It's a little funny the way the jails work. They put you behind bars. I guess is a way of kind of, because you're a threat to society. Like, yeah, I'm a big threat. Have to put me behind bars. But they don't mind throwing the inmates in with each other as if they're not a threat to each other. You've got to, or like they don't care. It's like they can't have you out walking around because you might, I don't know, do something horrible, escape or kill somebody. I don't know what. But they don't mind putting these inmates into the same scene with each other, even though they don't know each other. Well, it just so happened that he and I bonded, of course, very quickly, and I just had a profound sense of connection with him, and a sense of sadness about everything. I hugged him deeply, and he cried. I mean, tough, strong man. Cried. He called his mom. She's going to try to get him out, but this is a long ordeal for him. So, and it could have been me. I could have been that guy, but it just so happened that for whatever reason, accident of birth, accident of not having pot in my pocket, or flakes of the wrong thing, or the fact that the cop was nice to me because my pill bottle was unmarked, and I got through the situation. I guess I'm a little bit superstitious. I tend to think that things happen for a reason, and I think this happened for a reason to me. It happened because I probably needed a reminder of the central importance of the thing I care about most in this world, which is human liberty. I fell in love with the idea a long time ago, and it's the idea that's animated my whole life. It's the thing that seems equal to justice, equal to everything good in this world. Without liberty, there's nothing. With liberty, we have a chance. We have a chance to build a beautiful world. And maybe every once in a while we need reminders. And this is a beautiful reminder to me. It also allows me to speak and say, listen, nobody's safe. Nobody's safe under our current system. One of the great tragedies of American politics today is that, something has told me over the last week that we've been through a watershed. When you've got a majority of Republicans supporting a guy uh, who is blowing every dog whistle in an interwar tradition, you know, demonizing foreigners, claiming to be able to have the strength and the power as a great leader to run the country. If we elect him and trust him, then everything will be fine. This book, Omnipotent Government, it nails it. It gets it. It understands the mind of the fascist ideologue. Fascism originated in a syndicalist style socialist ideology, but it dispensed with the things that people don't like about socialism. It threw out collective ownership of property, the elimination of family, the advocacy of atheism. These things are just like dispensable. The fascism embraces faith. Trump speaking before an audience in Mobile, Alabama, yesterday, day before, said as much as he loves his book, The Art of the Deal, it's a great book, everybody should read it. There's one book that's better, it's the Bible. And the masses went wild. Okay, so everybody should believe that this man is supportive of their faith too. I mean, it's alarming, how easily manipulated people are. I'm beginning to understand Mencken's writings about democracy, in a way I've never entirely understood before. It's very surprising, very interesting. But the themes are the same. Fascism takes a different form in every country. Mises's focus in this book is on Germany. Surprisingly, actually, the book opens up with what he considers to be the core Nazi idea, which is not anti-Semitism. It's not racism as such. Those were all incidental. They came after the fact. They became important later. The beginning of the National Socialist Workers' Party was within with the idea of Lebensraum, growing room. Growing room. We need a territory so large and so rich in natural resources and productivity that Germany itself could be economically self-sufficient and preserve its standard of living. So it had to expand its borders. It was a trade, an ideology rejecting globalism as a trade, believing that the German Empire should be self-sufficient and independent of the rest of the world. So it had to grow. It had to become imperialist. It had to become wildly aggressive in order to achieve this. I know of no other thinker who identifies trade, this kind of trade mercantilism or protectionism, mercantilism, as being the core of National Socialist ideology, but it is. That's how it all began. Resentment against foreigners, resentment against harsh war terms. Germany's been mistreated. The Weimar Republic, with all of its decadence and wild living, and the Nazi term, what do they call it? Degeneracy. After the German inflation, even the money had collapsed. And the message of the National Socialist Workers' Party was that you can't trust the money. You can't trust trade. You can't trust commerce. You can't trust the establishment. Look what they've done. They've ruined the world. All you can, in the end, trust is Germany as a productive unit. Let's make Germany great again. That was the message. And because blood is real. Blood is thicker than all the other commercial waters out there. Let's rally around it and believe in it. And that's the core of the Nazi ideology. I mean, otherwise, Nazism had taken a lot of ideas from other places. Eugenics from the California experience, in the progressive era. Social welfarism from the New Deal. The anti-Semitic racial doctrine had long existed as part of German life at some level. I mean, goodness gracious, I mean, the Jews have been scapegoated since the Middle Ages, long before in the ancient world, so that was not a new theme. But packaging it up in the way that National Socialism did was special. It was unique, and it was unique to Germany. When you think about fascism, and Mises discusses this at length, it takes on a different character in every country. So for Spain, Franco was the new religious conquistador, an embodiment of the greatness of Spain's past. He would go anywhere and do anything on behalf of the Catholic faith. That was his message. In Italy, Mussolini was the new Caesar, recalled the greatness of Rome. Hitler, recalling some mythical greatness of Germany's past as a peasant, with unusual amounts of wisdom and insight. Fascism takes on the cultural characteristics of every country in which it lives, because it unites statism, nationalism, with the cultural experience of a people and a race. So, in Latin America, it's a similar situation. I mean, every time fascism's raised its head, it's taken on a different character. And it's ironic to me. We've had fascist-like experiences in this country in the past. But one of the amazing things about the Trump experience is that, in the end, the American form of fascism takes the form of a capitalist businessman. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, this country is a commercial republic. We've known this since Jefferson and Tocqueville and H.L. Mencken, and every interpreter of American culture has highlighted this country's love of business, our love of wealth, our adoration of a successful business person. That's what's great about this country. That's what makes it wonderful. It's why Rose Walter Lane praised it, and Ayn Rand thought it was unique to the world, because we love business. But wouldn't you know, there's something about the state, there's something about fascistic ideology, something about politics that takes even the greatest thing, love of business, love of enterprise, love of wealth, and corrupts it fundamentally. And now, there he is. 2 weeks ago, he was a clown. Now suddenly it's serious, I think it behooves all of us who love liberty to just take a break from hating on socialism of the left-wing variety for just a little while. It's definitely deadly dangerous. It's led to famines and holocausts and gulags and horrible things in world history. But it's not the only form of evil out there. There's a right-wing version, right socialism, that's of a particular variety. It embraces the state, central control, authoritarianism, imposition, law and order, the cops, central planning, the myth that we can get one person at the top who can gather around him brilliant people and manage the world, perfectly, while rejecting the things about socialism that most of the members of the bourgeoisie don't like. It's it's atheism, it's anti-family, it's anti-property attitudes, and extracts all that sort of organic matter of society and cobbles it in together in a form of statism that's actually extremely politically viable and potent, and oddly unrecognizable to us, because we don't talk about it. We have not had a word for this. We don't recognize it. We're mystified by it. I was listening to Glenn Beck the other day. He's a really nice guy. A really nice guy. I think he's sincere. I truly believe this. I think he's got a sincere heart, and that's one of the reasons he's so popular. But nowadays, he's an outlier because he's a Trump skeptic, right? So he asked the question, again and again, why is it that you guys are going for Trump? And he was speaking about, all the other from Rush Limbaugh to Sean Hannity to Fox News and I mean countless others. I mean it's been shocking to see the right wing, and all credit to National Review, by the way, for not buying into this nonsense. Good for them. But the more populist oriented right wingers are all embracing this guy, and defending him, saying how wonderful he is. Because he's so against political correctness, so against the establishment, so willing to say the things that other people are willing to say. And Glenn Beck's naive about it, right? He's like, "I'm sorry, I don't get this. I don't get the ideology that he represents and why you're going for it." Well, if we had a stronger consciousness of the existence of fascism in the world as an ideological force, we would not have any mysteries. We would not be confused. We'd just see this for what it is. I mean, make America great again. Yeah, that's it, right? He says exactly the thing that you expect to be said. It's not a mystery. And we need to stop being naive about it. 2 weeks ago, as I said, this man was not considered a threat. He was a clown. It was a delightful summer distraction. And I reread Omnipotent Government in preparation for this talk, and I realized, again, 1944. I think, by the way, a much more powerful book than The Road to Serfdom. As much as I love The Road to Serfdom by Hayek, this book is actually better. Mises was a genius. Nobody in Germany expected what happened. They didn't know. If you had asked them 10 years earlier, could this happen? There's not a single member of the intelligentsia or a single person on the street who would have said, yeah, that can happen in Germany. Nobody expected it. All they wanted was to get rid of the corrupt establishment, which was indeed very corrupt. There's no dictator in history who's ever risen out of a world of perfect peace and justice. They always come about because conditions create them. And where are we in this country right now? I mean, what happened to me? Very scary. What happens to millions, tens of millions of other Americans that, or not tens of millions, but millions of Americans, declining standards of living, alienation, rise of a very sort of an establishment that's all controlling of sort of media culture, academia. I mean, there's a ruling class. A lot of people are sick of it. Federal Reserve resentment against the bailouts, and in 2008 continues to exist. Everybody's looking for a scapegoat, but instead of blaming the state itself, there's a tendency for people to blame the ruling class as it currently exists, and hope for somebody to overthrow it and replace it with their own personal rule. The last few days have made me realize something very powerful. The establishment is horrible. I've done nothing in my whole life but fight it. But there's actually something even worse than the establishment. A lone autocrat with a lust for power and a plan for the whole of society. Is that our next stage? I don't know. I was saying to myself, it couldn't happen because we're not experiencing a financial crisis. That's what tipped it, in Germany. Financial crisis. It's what tipped it in Spain and Italy too, actually. And for that matter, the U.S., a financial crisis. And then I saw the stock market correcting. That's not a real crisis. I mean, let's be real. Any more than 2008 was a real crisis. I mean, these are corrections. These are things that the market bears, just changes in the course of financial affairs. That if we just go, oh, bummer, it works itself out. But if you get a really strong leader to say, like Bush did in 2008, a disaster is happening to your life. If you don't cough up, if you're not willing to surrender your liberty now, it's going to get much worse. Trust me. Trust me to do the right thing. somebody like that can turn a minor financial crisis into a major political upheaval. I don't think we should be sanguine about this happening to this country. We're in a strange moment in our lives as Americans. We've got a ruling class that's tightening its grip, surveillance state, a police state like I experienced. And as bad as the situation is, and I don't think it's ever been worse in my lifetime, we actually have the technology now that's slowly outwitting the ruling class. We've got a globalized app economy with the internet and new technologies that are doing amazing things for us, giving us workarounds, giving us tools to build gradually, but beautifully and inexorably for your lives. Under the current status quo, I look down the road and I see a burgeoning freedom. I see it all around me. And it can happen. I believe this. The one thing that could stop it, our progress, the working out of this great contest between power and market, is an interruption like an election, where the wrong person, a dangerous, truly dangerous person, can come to power. And that could be happening to us right now. I'm terrified and mortified even to say it, but it's just true. A person who proposes to make everything actually worse, to take all the worst features of the existing system, this nationalism, its xenophobia, its reliance on law, and intensify it and make it actually epically bad for everybody. I think that's what we face today. I don't know, but that's what I'm seeing around the corner. And that so many people are being tricked into this is a shock to me. And we need to be aware of it. We need to be aware of the existence of the threat. If we don't have a name for it, we'll not be able to identify it. Fascism is that name. And the best book on this topic is Mises' Omnipotent Government. Let's all work towards a world without arbitrary power and evil laws that entrap us and treat us like animals. That's happened to me. We're getting there. We can get there together. No matter what happens in our future, I do think that we're going to get there. I don't know how many more episodic trials we're going to have with various forms of statism. Red, brown, green. I don't care what color you make it. It's all the same. It's power, it's law, it's the ability of the state to arrest you and kill you if you resist. That's what it all comes down to. No matter what color you make it, that's what it always is. Let's embrace human liberty, reject the evil of the all-powerful state, move towards the 21st century based on liberty and human rights and rationality and decency, please. We can get there. Hang in there, my friends. Things get harder before they get easier. I'm sorry I haven't checked the message board tonight. You might have been asking lots of questions. It's a little awkward for me to follow the discussion. And I had hoped that maybe I would have an admin here that would give me any questions. But so I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for listening to my article. Thanks for hanging in there. And whatever thoughts or prayers you've given me over the last couple of days, I want you to know how much I appreciate it. It means a lot to me. All the best to you. And here's to a beautiful future of liberty. All the best.